Yo, Rena.
Hello, hello, Dr. Bach.
So what are all your traumas, Rena? Just kidding. Just kidding. Um,
I,
welcome.
I, I
Oh, go
pinched my
ahead. Go ahead.
finger
Yeah.
while moving this weekend. I have a little bit of a bruise. That's yep.
Oh, well, orientation and pleasure. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Exactly, which is I got to move. So,
Yes.
the small pinky bruise is a wonderful price to pay.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I'll take it. Sorry about the bruise. And congratulations on the move. And welcome everyone to a free association conversation between Rena K and myself, Dr. Bachho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. Links in the description to learn more about both of us. In these live stream free association conversations, Rena and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and people who already know its basics. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is, does organic intelligence heal trauma? And this topic came naturally. Rena and I discussed in the prior week, last week, we had a conversation about the question, does organic intelligence avoid root issues? And we discussed, I had a client who emailed me some thoughtful content, and he gave me permission to share it anonymously. I'm going to nickname him Crypto Bro. So because we have a crypto insider thing, fun thing. So Crypto Bro allowed me to share his content. We discussed it. It was very engaging. Thank you, Crypto Bro. And then he followed up with, oh, and then Rena and I talked about what to talk about next week. And the natural question was, does organic intelligence heal trauma? So we're just tackling that. And then Crypto Bro followed up with some more very thoughtful content that's very much in line with today's topic. So I plan, and he gave me permission to share more. So I'll share screen in a moment and share some of his content, and then Ren and I can get into it. That sounds good.
Cool,
Um,
nice.
first, I'm gonna give just a few prepared remarks because before Crypto Bros follow up, which I want to get into, and which is probably going to be more interesting to people. When I thought of the question, does organic intelligence heal trauma? I thought this is actually a very serious and important and weighty question because people who are considering organic intelligence will wonder, does it heal trauma? And then people who are organic intelligence coaches or considering training to become organic intelligence coaches or other healers and therapists who are wondering about organic intelligence coaches and what we do, they may wonder, do we heal trauma? So I was preparing to talk a lot about it today, but for the sake of getting to Crypto Bros comments, let me just say something short, just to answer the question directly in a more official sense, and maybe it'll be elaborated between us in future weeks. Let's say. Okay, so sorry for all that preamble. Here's the answer. Organic intelligence coaches are not allowed, I don't know about that word so much, but are not allowed to say that organic intelligence heals trauma. They're not allowed, if they want to maintain their certification as organic intelligence coaches. That's like a super kind of legalistic but precise answer. And they're not allowed because I didn't allow them to, so, because I wrote the documentation that is with the approval of the OI team that is binding on organic intelligence coaches. And there was a long discussion between me and the OI team about, does organic intelligence heal trauma? Can we say it heals trauma? Can organic intelligence, do we allow organic intelligence coaches to say they can heal trauma while maintaining their certification? There's a lot to say there. And the ultimate answer was no. The position is that they're not allowed to say they heal trauma, just as many of the crypto channels that tell you how to become rich will say this is not financial advice.
Right.
Now I'm going to leave it there. I think there's a lot of things I want to say about that answer, that I really want to say I think will be good for the future, but for the sake of getting to Crypto Bros comments, I'll just leave it at that. So the official answer is, just to repeat it, I know I've repeated it many times, but just to be very clear, because of the importance of this question, the documentation I laid out that is binding on organic intelligence coaches to maintain their certification and that it was approved by the OI team says that organic intelligence coaches, qua organic intelligence coaches, qua meaning in their capacity of organic intelligence coaches, may not say that they heal trauma. And let me put an asterisk there saying I really want to say a lot more and I hope to say more in the future. Okay. Rena, I'm going to go to you in case you want to say anything before we get to the.
I think we should probably jump to Crypto Bro and save that conversation for
Yeah.
another
I at least
time.
want to say, yeah, in case, because of the title, people may go to this video
Yep.
wanting that answer. So I at least gave that answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll just make the title clear when we have more conversation about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I know that was kind of here's this deep thing, and then I'm just going to move on to something else, but that's what we're going to do because we are oriented. We can pivot, right?
Well,
Okay.
and I think Crypto Bros comments will begin helping
Yeah.
us, touch on that very answer to that question.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Okay. So here's Crypto. Let me share screen. And again, I got his permission to share this content. Okay. Just verifying that Rena, you can see it.
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll read it through. I decided to read it through entirely because I think it's all good and useful. Uh, um, hey Bach, thanks for addressing my questions. I actually had a feeling that it would become your most viewed one last week. Thank you. I wouldn't be surprised if if the next one on healing trauma surpasses it. Thank you, Crypto Bro. Okay, for clarity, when I mentioned deeper work, I was referring specifically to trauma healing. And by healing trauma, what I and I suspect many others mean is the process of sitting with uncomfortable affect, for example, fear, anger, sadness, and somatically tracking associated sensations to completion, a la SE. SE is somatic experiencing. The general idea is that when we go through a negative experience that we aren't able to fully feel or metabolize in the moment, it leaves behind an energetic residue. And CryptoBro put energetic residue in quotes, just so you know, if for those of you who are not looking and just listening. If too much of that builds up, the system eventually collapses. To recover from that collapse, these incomplete survival responses need to be completed, i.e., that is to say, felt through, so that the energetic charge can discharge through crying, shaking, etc. A piece of that stored energy is released, and the system regains a bit more order. From what I understand, the OI view, which actually aligns with yogic philosophy, he put that in parenthesis, approaches it differently. It suggests we don't need to revisit the past or sit with difficult sensations directly. Instead, the focus is on how past experiences manifest in the present, mainly as reduced capacity. By orienting to the environment and to pleasure, we build capacity. And as capacity increases, suffering decreases. Regarding the second point, Bach here, I think by second point, he means the prior sentence, by orienting to the environment and to pleasure, we grow capacity. Regarding the second point, I think the main question people have is whether orienting to environment and pleasure leads to a persisting trait level change, parenthesis, deep work, close parenthesis, on his part, or if it just provides a temporary state level shift parenthesis, surface level relief, close parenthesis, requiring ongoing maintenance. For example, if someone makes a mildly dismissive comment and it triggers a big emotional reaction, it's likely touching on a tender spot or complex. He put complex in quotes in Jungian terms. In the feel it to heal it model, the charge around that complex eventually dissolves, leading to a lasting shift. But with OI, it can seem more like the complex. Oh, my Zoom is covering that top sentence. Oh, it can seem more like the complex is just bypassed or suppressed and may resurface just as strongly um, when triggered again. I would liken it to the difference between having to actively avoid alcohol to stay regulated versus having done the inner work so that alcohol has no pull at all, or like constantly needing to apply a band-aid to stop the bleeding versus stitching the wound and letting it truly heal. I know I can be a bit wordy, but I just care about clarity. I've emboldened the parts I sorry, I think would resonate most with your audience for brevity. Feel free to read out or paraphrase anything from this email if you feel so called. P.S. I read your book over the oh nice. I read your book over the last couple of days, and now I have a better understanding of OI for sure. Gig was insufferable. Lamau, laughing my ass off. Cheers. Okay, thank you, Crypto Bro. Just yeah, so the book is out. Here it is. I'll show it on. I'll stop sharing the screen here. Here's the book, buy it. It will heal your trauma. So please, immediately. The gig, when he said gig, the main character in there is a gay Indian guy, and I didn't have a name for him, so I just put GIG, gay Indian guy, and then I got attached that, so that became his name. His name is Gig because I didn't want to come up with a name. Anyway, read the book; it'll heal your trauma. Um, thank you everyone for listening to that. So I'm gonna get some water. I'm gonna drink some water. Rena, would you care to just begin here, however you wish? I'll share the comments for a few more moments while you
Yeah,
please.
great. Go ahead and share share his response.
Okay, all right.
Cool. So there's another number of things that struck me, and one is just this person's grappling with what many people grapple with, which is, not so much how do I heal trauma, but how do I just feel good in life? So even though people talk about healing trauma, and he makes this reference as well, I don't know that that's really the end goal people have. The end goal is I want to feel better and I want to feel good in life and I want to feel like I'm living my life in the present and not being overly or unduly influenced in a negative way by the past. Of course, every present moment is being impacted by our experiences of the past. But I think what people don't want is the undue negative influences of the past, which they are calling trauma. And if they can not have that, then they would feel better in life. But really, it just comes down to people want to feel good, right? And so he's identifying what we've already been talking about, you and I, this question about what is it that allows that to happen. And so there's that perception or the belief and also teaching that he identifies and I think he's describing some common modalities out there, but he talks about this idea of getting rid of an energetic residue. Like there is these experiences, and these experiences need to be quote unquote completed, right? And if they get completed, then they would be healed, so to speak, right? And which is a kind of an interesting, to complete something is a very different concept than to heal something in the first place. But it really calls into question that idea that these premises that we have energetic residue and that we can get rid of that residue. Like and putting it all within energetic terms, I find somewhat questionable because then you can say anything you want, whether it's true or not true, as opposed to an understanding a little bit more of how things happen on a neurological level. And I think organic intelligence views on that in terms of what's happening, and maybe we can get to that. What is actually happening to us when we have had trauma, or when we've had bad experiences, or when we've had painful things that have happened, and to the degree that we are still feeling or feel like we're impacted by that, what is that? What is really happening? I think that's an important question to ask.
May I go for a bit here? Thank you. I stopped sharing just intuitively. I just decided to go back to you and me. But if you want me to share the screen, just let me know, okay?
Mhm.
Um, so I heard you say there are people wanting to heal their trauma, to resolve their trauma, not to suffer from their trauma. And you're saying the bigger and broader picture is they want to feel better. And that's one point you made. And then you pointed out Crypto Bros reference to energetic residue and some question, some skepticism about that concept. And the I think maybe a rab or that could just open it up to like kind of arbitrary talk or speculation, something like that. Um, Let me know later if I misrepresented you or something like that. But let me just say, um, one thing I think motivating crypto, actually, so crypto bro, I'm not going to try to say what's in your mind or what your intentions are, but the content you laid out, one people who would resonate to that content, the content, well, I'm interested in healing trauma, and that's a deeper work, and does organic intelligence somehow skirt around it? I wanted to identify maybe empathize with the people who are coming at organic intelligence critically. So let me just try to do some of that. And then, so if we're, so Rena, I think I'm in full agreement with you that we're saying the aim should be to feel better. That's the point. I mean, what else? And not to focus on the healing of the trauma, but on feeling better. That is, I think that's true. I think that is organic intelligence. And I think many people are off put by that idea. And I want to at least empathize with that point first. So by giving another example. So I know this, I know this therapist, and when she has a suicidal client, the client says, I want to commit suicide, I want to die. One of her things that she does is to say, what I'm hearing is you don't want to die, you want your pain to end. And I could see I know that a reaction could be that felt very invalidating to me. I'm the hypothetical client. Like,
Mhm.
I told you I want to die. You're saying you don't want to die. What I'm hearing is you don't want to die. You want the pain to end. And then so the suspicion on the client that that's somehow manipulative or gaslighty, or just you're trying to be clever or maneuver around something, because I said I want to die. And I'm wondering that among many who are a little skeptical or skeptical about organic intelligence, if they would experience us or perceive us as saying, when you say you want to heal your trauma, and then I'm saying, what I'm hearing is, you don't want to heal your trauma, you want to feel better, and I'm trying to get you to focus on feeling better and not on your trauma, that it could come across as offensive, maybe not as extreme as my that case, but that we're in some way not getting the people who are interested in organic, that in some sense we're not understanding the skepticism about organic intelligence, or somehow not fully attuned to or being with or empathizing with. I lay that out there as a possible
Mhm.
concern I want to empathize with.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
And certainly, to be fully attuned, if a person is like, I want to heal my trauma and this is what my trauma is, yeah, that has to be attended to and not dismissed for
yeah.
sure. And especially, in a one-on-one situation. But as I'm hearing you saying, even with what we're presenting here in a public way, in the same way, we don't want to misattune to our listeners who might go, but yeah, but I have trauma and I want to know what to do with that.
Right. Oh no, I'm with you. So that was
Yeah,
just to empathize with where they're coming from, not in any way to
totally.
dilute what I'm about to say. So, um, the concern in some of crypto bros comments is that the skepticism about organic intelligence. One source of skepticism could be this: I have trauma, I want to heal it. My trauma is a thing. And you may describe it in different ways. Some people may say energetic residue. I'll just say there's some stuff. There's issues, there's content, there's trauma, there's a glob of stuff. Whether it's I was abused sexually, bad parents, I was in a car accident, forced at birth, or who knows, just some XYZ. There's stuff, there's content, there's a glob of stuff. The way to heal it is to get into it and feel it. And my suspicion, I'm the person who's skeptical about organic intelligence. My suspicion with organic intelligence is that you're telling me to focus on orientation and pleasure. And I'll even add in capacity because I gave the answer last time. It works by building capacity. Let's say this person is willing to grant organic intelligence. You're focused on orientation and pleasure and capacity building. I maybe see its value, but it just seems like it's just by avoiding feeling the glob and addressing the glob and just trying to focus instead on orientation, pleasure, and capacity building, you're just going to leave the glob there, and it's going to be reinforcing. And maybe they would say your focus on orientation and pleasure seems somehow like a superficial life of just cat videos and eating popcorn, and somehow that's supposed to convince us to go with that and leave our glob, our demons kind of hovering around unaddressed. I think that's maybe in many people's minds, I suspect. I'm hoping that I'm
Yeah.
getting some people correctly in their
Yeah,
experience.
no, I think you're right about that. And you know, embedded in that is the assumption that the glob would remain the same.
Nice. Sorry. I wanted to interrupt you and can take control, but I'm gonna stop. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I, okay, so I spent some time empathizing with the opponents, and I'm just gonna totally attack you and trash you by saying the feel it to heal it. First of all, you get so many anecdotes of it just doesn't fucking work. It just makes people worse off. Somatic people feel it, feel your pain, feel your sensation, and they're disorganized and they feel worse. So it often doesn't work. Secondly, when it seems to work, it's because you feel so much better after feeling so much worse. So you feel this is so good because I felt, first of all, if you're feeling a lot of pain in therapy, you may think it's productive because discomfort is good. I'm feeling my trauma. That's good. It's productive. And then you feel so much better after you feel that. And you feel like it's your earned reward. Oh, I'm healing because I felt so bad. That was good. And then I felt so good after I felt bad. That was really productive. This is trauma healing, not this organic intelligence, look around the room bullshit. Look at that flower. Or you may think you're healing because the the tracking of sensation can often produce numbness, which I've heard there are people who are in demos and they say, well, I was suffering from car accident and or all this trauma, and then I had my somatic therapy and feel my pain, and then I no longer feel any pain. I no longer feel, and the people are clapping and applauding. But if you look at them, they're collapsed and they're numb. So yes, you resolved the painful sensations by eliminating sensation. They're numb, which is not healing according to organic intelligence, because what we want to do is increase pleasure, not just blunt sensation. So A, a lot of it doesn't work and it causes pain. B, when it seems to work, it's because you felt so much worse, which you think is productive. Then you felt so much better, but that is tied to feeling worse first. So you think it's productive. You think it's healing. C, often it will just numb you out, and that's different from actually increasing your capacity for happiness. D, we are not ignoring trauma or organic. We're not ignoring pain. I mean, if you see some of my sessions, it's mostly pain because they're coming in with pain. And so the orientation and pleasure consists in how do we not make it worse and be as gentle as possible with it. So what organic intelligence does is orientation, the stabilizing of orientation, fundamentally shifts the whole experience and valence of working with that glob. We're working with the glob, we're working with your experience and what's pressing, but we're working with it in a way that is your biology can process more easily, which actually allows us to go deeper because we're working at a within threshold level of intensity. So all these criticisms of organic intelligence, I think I'm kind of in this kind of zane, like I'm going mental, like Rachmaninoff piano concerto. Like I'm not sure how I'm coming across, but I'm just excited. So um you guys are superficial, you're ignoring what's wrong, you're telling us to watch cat videos, you're not healing trauma. It's so opposite. The way to do the deepest processing and healing is to do it through an optimal level of intensity, which is that level of intensity secured by the stabilization of orientation and pleasure.
You might want to repeat that sentence if you can.
Oh God, I don't know. That's so hard.
Yeah,
The way to do
let me give it a shot. Basically,
the way to do the sorry, let me. I'm on my
go ahead.
the way to do the deepest possible healing is to handle whatever's coming up for you at the optimal level of intensity, which, and according to organic intelligence, the optimal level of intensity is that secured by the stabilization of orientation and pleasure. Okay, I'm gonna
Well, and just
okay.
kind of reiterate what you're saying is that as the biology becomes increasingly stabilized in orientation and pleasure, its capacity increases, and as the capacity increases, there may be a touching upon moments or say emotions or thoughts that in the past would have felt exceedingly intense to the degree that it would have been unpleasant, right, or distressing. And what we're saying is that when you do these and make contact with, say, memories that are at the level of threshold the biology can handle, then it doesn't feel necessarily even unpleasant. And it's going to feel neutral by and large. There'll be what in psychology terms they call a witness. You know, there'll be somebody that's kind of witnessing, in a sense, the experience, and you're like, well, isn't that interesting that that's happening? And there's a way of experiencing it that is not so intense. And so the whole idea we're and going back to Crypto Bro's comments about sitting in the sensation and feeling these kinds of things in their intensity, is that it's just too intense for the system. That in fact, what it does is reinforces. So every time you have that emotion about that particular event and you have it again and again and again and again, you're really, you might be like you mentioned, you might just be desensitizing yourself and becoming numb to it, in which case you're not necessarily changing your ability to deal with, future events with greater capacity. Or you are going to reinforce it to the point that you just keep having it more and more and more and more of it. And so either way, it's not exactly helpful. Um, I was going to say
Yeah.
another comment, but it's a second comment. So you want to say anything to that?
You're saying feel it, the idea of feel it to heal it, one problem is feeling it may actually aggravate it and reinforce it rather than heal it. Actually feeling something else, pleasure, low intensity orientation, is the way to reduce the reinforcement of that glob. And so it's not correct to criticize orientation and pleasure for being avoidant. Well, actually it is if you're just being literal with the term avoid, but because of the term avoid is so loaded, but by focusing on something other than that glob, it takes intensity away from that glob, and that's how you are addressing it.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
go ahead, please.
Well, there's also the next comment that I think the criticism that you touched on earlier that's important and that Crypto Bro talks about is that, well, does this focus on orientation and pleasure create what he called trait level changes?
Yeah,
So
nice, nice.
meaning long term, like my whole overall sense of myself is different. So like on the personality level, say, right? Or is this orientation just that, oh, I spent some time orienting and now I feel a little bit better and an hour later, I'm yelling as I'm driving at the other driver, right? And I'm all upset. So and that would be what he called a state change, right? Like I had a nice change of state, lasted for a few minutes and then right away it goes back to the old way. And there is some truth to that in that as we orient and as we go towards pleasure, we don't have, it's not instant. It's not like the first time I enjoy something and truly enjoy it at a deep level, and from then on, I never have a bad feeling. Like that would be quite silly, right? So there is some level of repetition because the brain has to develop new networks, right? So the brain works in synaptic patterns, and there's these patterns are firing in certain ways, and so if we have had a repeated experience and we keep repeating it in our memory and it keeps getting reinforced in our biology, well then we're creating these pathways, and those don't get pruned without some amount of another pathway being built. And so part of what we are doing in building orientation and pleasure is building these new pathways that are more pleasurable in and of themselves. There's a whole nother issue that we could get into another time, but at least on that level, yes, one state change plus another state change plus another state change plus another state change. It's the string of state changes that will create a trait difference. But it also has to happen though that it's not just it's happening in what you're describing as these optimal levels of intensity. So even the state changes are when they're at these optimal, the next level, the next level, the next level, and it's that growth is happening step by step by step. That's what leads to the trait change that develops.
Thank you. May I? We're on our time, but I'll say one last thing and then I'll hand it to you and then we'll phase out, I guess. So, crypto bro, you got it. This orientation and pleasure develop as traits. Yes, as you practice them, they develop as traits. The biology is prepared for them. That's what makes them different from any other techniques that you do over and over again, like cognitive distortion tracking, when that's not oriented and pleasant. Because orientation and pleasure are special because they promote optimal level of intensity, which grows your capacity so that you feel more and more stabilized in orientation and pleasure. It grows like coral. It's definitely trait producing. One more thing I'm going to throw out there is in the case of the feel it to heal it. So I presented several concerns with that. It causes a lot of harm, and you may think it's working when it's not, and it may numb you out. And orientation and pleasure are more efficient. That last point I want to elaborate on one a bit. So if feel it to heal it suppose it does work, like you had a glob of something, you did feel it to heal it therapy, and it worked. I mean, which it can work. I mean, your body may be able to quote unquote metabolize it, so it worked. There's a price though. The price is the price or opportunity cost is that you got habituated more to the way to feel better is by feeling worse first. It worked, but at the same time, you got habituated to feeling better by feeling worse first. So that ongoing in life, you'll be more on the premise of to heal, I need to feel discomfort, and then so you'll be subconsciously or consciously or pro discomfort because that's how you became comfortable. Whereas on the path of orientation and pleasure, you feel comfortable by feeling comfortable. It's fundamentally different and more efficient. One quick metaphor or analogy, it's like you want to play loud on the piano. Many people try to play loud by slamming their hands and getting strong with their fists and fingers and slamming hard to play loud. Yes, you can do that. It works, but the more efficient way is to play fast because piano keys are very light. If you play loud by just plucking very fast with your fingers and you play very loud, you don't have to use all this extra weight. So I don't know how that was just in the moment analogy, but so the feel it to heal it would be like pounding on the piano. I want to play loud, pound, pound, pound on the piano, which is a lot of extra tension, a lot of extra efforting. But if you can just play fast and light, you can play very loud and it's very, very tension free. And that's organic intelligence.
Well, I'm not going to add to it because whatever I add to is going to open some newer cans of worms. So let's save that for another conversation. There's a lot of good points that are said here, and I hope people that will listen to a video multiple times, because by listening multiple times, you'll pick up different thoughts and even have different questions. And so just as Crypto Bro wrote to you, which is cool. We're open to comments and communication that allows you to share any questions that you have about what we're saying and gives us an opportunity to clarify.
Thank you, Rena. Thank you to the listeners. Thank you, Crypto Bro, and we'll see you all next time for more free association
Sounds
on
good.
organic intelligence.